Three, two, one. We are on, my friends. Look what we got here today. We have the QM9K versus the QM8K versus the Bravia 9. And our special guest is the Sony BVM3110. Yes, we're live. I'll answer your questions comparing the Sony Bravia 9, my current leader. Best mini-LED TV out there, and for many reasons. We'll go over those reasons, but most importantly, let's talk about why you guys are here. Hey, gang, let's check audio. Yes, Matt and Bev, thank you for your patience. We're finally on. I admit, I'm using a new camera today. I'm using the Panasonic S1 Mark II. I think its additional dynamic range and resolution may make things look a little bit better. I hope. And let me know if it's an improvement, but quick audio check. You're all fired up? Yes, I know you are. Just Fraser, all fired up, as am I. I'm very excited. And this is the best part. FOMO. Hey, Mozart's Ghost. FOMO. I can barely keep up with the news. What the heck is a super quantum dot? Well, you know, you add super in front of something, it must be awesome, right? And okay, so I want to set the context and the stage for today's comparison. For many of you, it's been 16 months, only 16 months since the Sony Bravia 9 was made available in the USA. It's just a little over a year old, right? It is a 2024 model, launched back in spring of 2024. And ever since it launched, that Sony Bravia 9 has been my standard for both a combination of perfectly great peak specular highlights with nuanced color gradients. A lot of times you get super bright, as you've seen with the Hisense U7 series or the U8, but then you lose all this color gradation. It's kind of like clipped, but it's bright, but that's not the point, right? You want a little bit of both, and the Bravia 9 does that better than any mini LED TV. The only TVs that do it as well are OLED TVs, the G5 or the Samsung S95F. But among large mini LED TVs, nothing come close. And I say large just because the Bravia 9 starts at 65 inch, goes up to 85. And we know you guys wanted a 98 inch Bravia 9 this year with all that performance. The question is, could TCL take the place of a 98 inch Bravia 9? And we had hopes that I lost my train of thought. We had hopes that the TCL QM8K this year could do it, because last year's TCL QM8 could not do it. Fell behind in many ways. It was brighter, sure, could not get the color gradations right, and the shadow detail was definitely off. And that was another thing about the Bravia 9 that makes it continually be the best mini LED TV out there. Its shadow detail is spot on. Only OLED TVs beat it. Now, the QM8K we tested this year, there was hope that this could be the Bravia 9 beater, the poor man's Bravia 9, so to speak. It didn't quite do it. The shadow detail still not there, and it was, again, slightly brighter, but it lost a lot of the nuanced color gradation. Now let's look at the specs real quick. This is what impresses me, is the Sony Bravia 9 at just over 1500 dimming zones, around there, right? Its peak brightness does not exceed 3000 nits. Now, maybe in some TVs it might. It's a panel-to-panel variation, but generally speaking, it's just under 3000 nits, calibrated or in filmmaker mode or whatever. And for HDR impact, that's important. It just doesn't quite get there, which is fine. As we've seen in my other videos, most HDR movies don't even come close to breaking 1000 nits. But for the ones that do, this one does well, meaning the Sony Bravia 9 at just under 3000 nits, it's great. The QM8K does hit brighter, but you're losing some of the nuanced detail. The question is, the TCL QM9K at almost twice as many dimming zones, because I see what TCL's doing. They're like, okay, look, we don't have the software that Sony has, but what if we doubled the dimming zone one more time, right? Matching the dimming zone was not enough, QM8K. Doubling it to 2900. Now, this is an extrapolation. At 6000 dimming zones on a 98 inch, I kind of took it back to, okay, at 65 inches, what would it be? And looking at the other sizes and extrapolating that, it looks like it'll be around 2900 dimming zones, approximately. It'll be close. But here's the key. They then upgraded the brightness to 6500 nits. We don't think we'll get to 6500, but this allows the QM9K to also not have to tone map as aggressively as either the QM8K or the Bravia 9 when we hit Jennifer Gala's 10,000 nit content. And again, I know no such content exists, and QM9K is a flex for TCL. TCL's like, look, I know no such bright TVs exist, but let's flex and see if we can beat the Sony Bravia 9 in their own game. And today, thus the question mark, can the QM9K do what the QM8K could not? And then maybe this at 98 inches is, and I'm not going to say the poor man's Bravia 9 because it is as expensive as the Bravia 9. At 65 inches, the MSRP, right? So its official launch price is $29.99. The Bravia 9 is currently $2,700, $2,800 depending where you buy it. And we know by Black Friday, both TVs will drop a bit in price. I suspect the Bravia 9 will be closer to $2,600, $2,500 on Black Friday. And for sure, the QM9K will be below $2,500, probably closer to $2,000. But $2,000 for a TCL 65-inch, that's a flagship TV. There's no question about it. And it would be more expensive than any 65-inch from Samsung, and we're not going to count the 8K. So this is definitely a flex by TCL. Now let's talk about what makes it better. The dimming zones, what makes it better than the QM8K? What you're paying for is the additional dimming zones, the software to control that dimming zone, and of course the 6500 nits. And as you've seen before, if all you're doing is watching Columbo, do yourself a favor and get the QM6K, right? For like less than half the price. But if your goal is get an impactful 98-inch TV, well, let's see how the QM9K does to be that Bravia 9 at 98 inches. And I know Sony hates it when I compare it to other TVs, but that's what it is, right? Because come on, guys, you guys are the benchmark. You've been the benchmark for 16 months. Can we unseat the Bravia 9 right now? I mean, this is amazing that just over a year, TCL's already kind of put the specs together. Okay, so let's look at the TVs real quick. QM8K, top left-hand corner, Bravia 9, to the right of the QM8K. The QM9K is just below the Bravia 9, and the Sony BVM reference monitor is right there on the bottom left. I have it there so I can see accurately what the brightness points are, so I can tell you guys, hey, at this brightness, look what it does, and we'll see how that goes. Now, we're going to reset all the settings so that you guys can see that all the TVs will be out of the box default, but I will tweak them all to what I know looks best on the TV, but it's to taste, and we can play with the settings later. And before we jump into the content, I know you guys like, oh, you guys want to share. So, Jason Sims, hey, the poor man's Bravia 9 is a Bravia 7. Yeah, actually, you're right. The only thing is the Bravia 7 off angle is not as good as a Bravia 9. And we're hoping that these new wide angle layers from TCL kind of makes up that difference. Okay, and speaking of the Bravia 7, we had leaks that the Bravia 7 Mark II next year will be RGB LED. Now, will those leaks turn out to be true? We gotta wait until after CES, but seeing that TCL has a fall launch of an entire RGB LED lineup, I hate to say it, guys, but next year is the year of RGB LED. I thought we'd be a bit ways off, maybe 2 to 3 years for affordable RGB LED. Not the case. Hisense and TCL, they're hitting their home market of China hard with affordable versions of RGB LED, in air quotes, affordable meaning that it's relatively affordable to what we know Sony and Samsung will be releasing next year as flagship technology that will probably be at least twice, if not 3 more times expensive. So the Hisense RGB LED at 85 inches in China is quoted to be around $2,500, and TCL's like, oh, that's nothing. We're gonna do the same with our lineup, but this is in China. Let's see what they do for the USA in a few months. But in the meantime, let's look at the current technology, current state-of-the-art technology in miniLED. Bravia 9 with the best-in-class software, QM9K with literally the most dimming zones money can buy, and the QM8K came close, but not quite enough. And if you look at this image, which I love, it's just a screensaver, essentially they all look the same. Because if you're not watching really bright content that pushes these TVs, get the QM6K, because I'll tell you right now, the QM6K will look identical to all these TVs. But That's not what we're about. We're about pushing the envelope, and that's what I'm going to do today. We're definitely going to use Jennifer Gallo's content. She's got great 2,000 nit, 4,000 nit, and 10,000 nit content. Thank you, Jennifer, for making this possible. So we're going to jump into it right away with some of her content. Let's see what kind of comments we got, and if not, I'm going solo today, so every now and then I'll check for comments. If I miss your question, keep on asking for sure. All right, let's see what we got here. Whoa. Mini LED is a poor man's OLED. I think, Ahmad, you are correct. Pixel for pixel, size for size, mini LED TVs are cheaper. But as we've seen, this is not what buyers are looking at. They're looking at it this way. And you tell me if I'm not right here. They're going to spend $2,500. That's their budget. They can get a Panasonic Z95B for $2,500, LG G5, S95F. All of these three TVs are state-of-the-art OLED at $2,500. Or get a 100-inch, 98-inch TCL or Hisense for around that price. They're still spending the same amount of money. So in essence, it's not a poor man anything, it's just a larger size. And that's the issue I think OLED's going to have in 2026 and beyond. I've spoken to this with Brian, Brian's Tech Therapy, right? Bromo. And we're in agreement. TCL and Hisense, they don't want you to save money per se. You're still spending $2,000 to $2,500, but they're saying, look, what do you want? A high quality OLED? How about above average medium quality, maybe slightly better than medium quality at 3 times the size, 100-inch, instead of 55-inch flagship OLED or 65. Let's go to 100-inch. And I guarantee you next year, you're going to see affordable 115-inch. Like right now, 115-inch, 110-inch, all over 10,000. Next year, I bet you're going to see it under 10,000. Like a QM6K equivalent at under 10,000 for 110, 115. Brilliant. Like at home, I watch a Hisense ultra short throw PX3 Pro at 110 inches on my wall. I love it. It's addictive. So Ahmad, it's not really a poor man's alternative. It's kind of like the man with a big house that still wants to spend $2,500. So let me know if that resonates with you. All right, let's do this, my friends. So here we are. 12,000 nits video, oh, 2,000 nit video. All right, so 2,000 nits, all three TVs should be able to comfortably do this. And I'll adjust the exposure if I see one TV really popping more than the other. And all three TVs are really doing well. So, these highlights are not super challenging. I'm gonna pause right here. Now, what you're gonna notice is the brighter TV is going to be a little bit less saturated in color. What I see will be full saturation because it's slightly brighter. The sensor won't be able to capture the extra brightness without desaturating the color. So a lot of you will be commenting, wait, I like the Sony, or I like whatever, a QM9 or 8 better because I see more color. Not so. The brighter TV has the same color, but when it's brighter, the sensor desaturates that color. Now, if I do see a desaturation, I'll tell you so. I'll go, oh, you know what? It feels like it's slightly desaturated. So here's what's interesting is the Bravia 9 is slightly less saturated than the QM9K. And I'm looking at the brightness of the reference monitor. It feels like maybe the QM9K might be pulling back just a touch of brightness right here. I'm looking at this stem here. There's slightly more color here, but yet on the reference monitor, this stem, it looks very similar to the QM8K and the Bravia 9. So interesting, right? We know that oh wait, before we jump in any further, settings. Let's go through all the settings, right? So I'll reset the settings for you guys. So if you guys end up buying any of these TVs, you can then use the settings I'm using for HDR impact and all of that. And this is in a dark room. So picture settings are all in filmmaker mode because that makes it easier for me in a dark room to get them to be at their most accurate signal processing. They're not doing anything funky, right? So we're on the QM8K. And before I even jump in the settings, I'm going to restore default, right? Okay. Okay, all defaults are restored, and these are the tweaks I'm going to do. Brightness stays the same. You want brightness at 100 because that is the most accurate for HDR impact. That's what the creator intended. I'm not going to change the contrast, black levels. Now the gamma, I will go down to 2.4. We're in a darker room. 2.2 is in a slightly brighter room, so at 2.4, that's more accurate to the creator's intent. No automatic HDR conversion because that's reserved for SDR. We're just going to watch HDR. Now the QM8K has, at default, detailed priority on. I'm going to turn it off because I don't think that adds much to what we're doing. And we'll play with it on later, but I'm going to turn it off for now. Dynamic contrast is off, black stretch is off. This is the dimming zone. I always set it on high to give it the best and most accurate black levels. And the peak luminance is at highlight. I'm going to take it one notch up to its maximum, which is high dynamic. And everything else is off. Okay, that is the QM8. The Sony is probably going to have a little bit less adjustment, but we'll reset it to its default. So reset picture on the Bravia 9. And yes, reset to default. Now, brightness, what we have is brightness maximum, correct, contrast 90. Gradation preferred is how you should have it on all of your Sony Bravias because that is how they think creator intended, and it gives you the most color saturation and peak brightness without compromising it. You're not going to get any clippings, so that's correct. Black levels, default, no change there. Auto local dimming, I set to medium. That looks best on the Bravia 9. It depends on what model, but for the Bravia 9, that is it. And peak luminance on high. And yes, I just updated the Bravia 9 this morning, so it's on the latest firmware. The QM9K and the QM8K are on the latest firmware. Okay, the QM9K is slightly interesting. Its settings is a little bit different than the QM8K, and I'll show you where. First, we'll restore the defaults. Okay, all right. Now, filmmaker mode, same picture mode as, so this is the one interesting. When you go to restore default, look at how bright it is. They set it at 9, right? On the QM8K, it starts off at 100. So I'm gonna have to increase this to the accurate 100. Contrast is 100, that's fine. Black level. Gamma, I'm gonna adjust to 2.4. All right, dynamic tone mapping starts off as off. So I'll leave it off. Local contrast on high. Peak brightness, interesting, starts off at low because maybe it's too bright. We're going to take up to high. Now, there's one more setting that's interesting. Boost. I'm going to put it on boost and see what happens. Now, if we see anything funky, we'll take it down, but let's find out. I don't know what boost does, by the way. I did a rough check this morning just to make sure everything works, so I really don't know what boost is going to do, but you guys can tell me if you don't like boost, right? So, all right, so here we are. All the settings are there, and even with boost, I'm looking at this scene. Yeah, the QM9K, slightly more color in that stem, but look at the reference monitor. It should be brighter, and you're okay losing some of that brightness. So that's interesting. They're tone mapping a little bit more aggressively than they should. I mean, it's capable of natively doing over 6,000 nits. So, all right, let's do this. So we're going to go through this, and as I see these differences and so forth, we're going to share it. Now, what I love about what Jennifer Gala does is when the scene gets to a certain brightness, she'll let you know if it changes. Oh, it's now 4,000 nits peak brightness or whatever. So, but in the meantime, let me check for your questions and see if you have anything. So this is 4,000 nits, and all the TVs. Actually, you know what? Let's stop here. Let me see. I'm going to lower this touch. Okay, there we go. I just want to make sure that the entire scene is within what you guys can see. There we go. Move that over. I'm going to move my labels over so you can enjoy the entire TV. Okay, and I might lower the exposure just a touch here. All right. Okay. I lower the exposure just a little bit so we can separate the brightnesses between them because we're not doing shadow detail yet. Hopefully I'll have time to do shadow detail, but when you're doing peak brightness, you'll want your camera's exposure a touch lower so you can truly separate the differences between these TVs. All right, move the Sony down there. Okay, let's do this. How's everyone doing today? Hopefully well. Okay. And I have to say, it's amazing. So at 1000 nits, they should all do exactly the same thing, right? Look identical because 1000 nits is more than within the capability of these TVs. And so that's 4000 nits, and going down 2000. All right, let's see if there's something more challenging here. This one's kind of funky because it's just the colors are so, like, it's not real faces, so it's kind of hard. All right, let's see what you got. Frank Garby says, my God, so similar, but I still think I see a little difference in Sony. Always gives this. Well, you're going through my camera sensors, weird funkiness, YouTube compression, and then on your TV, but I'm glad you can see the differences. We're going to have the Witcher, right? Scenes where you see facial tones, so maybe you can see what real streaming content might look like on these TVs compared as well. And if we have time, we'll do some TV shows that's off of the free Google TV free streaming to see how they process low bit rate content off of free TV. Oh, this is one. I see it already. Yes, immediately the QM9K is the brightest TV here. So you got the reference monitor looking brighter than the Bravia 9. The QM9K definitely looks brighter than the Bravia 9. And the QM8K is right there. So this is the first scene where I can say the color saturation is all there and the brightness is there. And so far, so good. Now, we're not to the brightness gradient yet. This is easy. Easy stuff for these guys. And the crazy thing is I don't see blooming on any of these TVs. I'd safely say at this brightness, blooming is solved. So how bright is this? I'll tell you right now. I'm looking at the peak and oh, we're just at 1000 nits. So already at 1000 nits because the wings are so large, the Bravia 9 is pulling back because it's not used to 1000 nits of that window size. I don't know, right? This one, they're very close, about the same. All right, 4000 to 1000 nits. All right, let's see. So that was 4000, that's why. So let's just stop right there. And there are elements, most of the scene is 1000 nits. Very close still. But the Bravia 9 is just a touch behind, just a touch. Not enough for me to make a decision on buying a TV, but 2000 nits, they can all handle it pretty easily. Let's move on to something that might be a bit more challenging. Okay, this is easy stuff. I think we're over this. I think it's safe to say that, yeah, all these TVs are easily dominating these scenes. This is not the hard stuff. I think the hard stuff would be, it could be this one. Yes, this is the one where the QM8K could not keep up with the Bravia 9, where the water and the light. Now, okay, I'm going to stop right here. Okay, here we go. And, okay, this one, you got it. We'll play it through. Wow. All the TVs looking very similar. And I'm looking at the reference monitor to see if any of the TVs, all these firmware updates really has transformed even the QM8K. I'm very impressed. They're keeping up with the Bravia 9 very well. And the Bravia 9 looks just like the monitor too. Let me go over here. Now, you're wondering, how bright is that? The brightest part of this scene is about 1000 nits. That giant circle on top is 1000 nits. So it's a larger window, and all three TVs can handle that quite easily. tone mapping is very good here. Okay, 1000 nits, too easy. $2,000 nits. This is when it gets challenging, and I got to tell you, that QM8K, I'm looking and I'm not seeing. When I first got the QM8K to review on its first firmware, it definitely had tone mapping issues, and right now I'm wondering, this content is not pushing the QM8K at all. But that firmware update feels like it's caught up to the Bravia 9 almost. Very impressive. Excellent. Just like the reference monitor, all three TVs. So good. Okay, let's go to this one. This is the one where I know the QM8K had trouble as well. So, in the brightest part of these scenes, and I'll tell you what to look for right here. All right, in the brightest part of this scene, in this corner where you have the blue, the Bravia 9 has the bright scene and it has all the gradients of blue right here. The QM8K was unable to do that. And how bright is that part of the scene? 1000 nits right there. And yet, I'm seeing it. So that scene, they did well. That one's also good. Okay, here's a good one. Okay, right here. Wow. Very bright and interesting. All the TVs are slightly clipping that because, as you can see, when I pull in the menu, there's actually more detail there, and none of the TVs are able to show that detail with that brightness required. Not even the reference monitor, because the window is too large. This is an incredibly bright scene. So this is great that I'm able to self-tone map the signal by pulling up the menu. Look at that. And I'm looking at the other side of it, the yellow side, and very good color depth there as well. Okay, let's look over here. I'm trying to capture lightning in a ball. I don't know if I can. Oh. Oh well. Oh, nailed it. Okay, right there. Let's look at the detail. There is a thin line of lightning right here on the Bravia 9, and all the TVs have that thin line of lightning without losing anything, just like the reference monitor. So far, they've all passed the test. Oh, look at that. Another lightning in a bottle. Okay. Let me see, make sure you guys see what I see. Wow. I'm not seeing any losses in color gradation. So the Bravia 9 has done this the best consistently, this entire gradation. The gradient of color, it has everything, right? It's got the dark yellow, it's got the pure yellow, then yellow brightens up, and this is super bright, right? And the bottom TV does exactly, the QM9K does it exactly like it, as well as the QM8K and the reference monitor. So good. Hope you guys are enjoying this. All right. Oh, we got a couple super chats. Let's hit those. Christian, thank you for coming by, my friend. I was all set to buy an LG G5 77-inch Black Friday, $4,000. Then I saw the QM8 85-inch for $900. I couldn't say no to that value. 85-inch and the QM8, a very good TV. Christian, let me know how you enjoy that TV. I think the 85-inch immersion, it just nails it. And these TVs are just so impressing me. Oh wait, I have to show you guys this real quick. I just love how that cloud disappeared. Here we go. Okay, so there's a cloud right here. So there's a lot of detail in this cloud, and all the TVs are showing that cloud. And as you watch that cloud disappear, it looks really cool. And you sometimes see one TV, it loses the detail earlier than the other because of the clipping from the bright scene. Incredibly challenging scene. Yeah, I'm going to rewind it one more time. You guys can see that. I am just so impressed how identical. And you saw me reset it, right? None of these TVs are calibrated. Okay, there's something here that I was going to show you guys. This part's very cool. And, okay. Right here, there's a super bright little specular highlight that's peeking out in a bright scene. This is very difficult to do, and all the TVs are doing it so well. And of course, the reference monitor. This is at above 1,000 nits. Okay, so there's this bright little highlight here. QM8K shows the highlight, but not quite as bright as either the QM9K or the Bravia 9. Now we're definitely picking hairs here, but I like it. Well, let me go back to that one more time. Wow, that super bright sun in the background on all three TVs looks so good, so good. I mean, it's an indistinguishable match to the monitor. So good. Okay, we have something here, very interesting. The QM9K is more aggressively tone mapping this part than either the Bravia 9 or the QM8K. And look at the reference monitor as, of course, your reference. It feels like you've lost a touch of brightness there. I think they're overdoing the tone mapping by a touch. Now, if I didn't have the reference monitor, I wouldn't be able to tell, but the Bravia 9 and the QM8K more accurately tone maps that. I have to say, TCL unleashed the QM9K just a bit, because it's clear it's got the chops, very clear. But you're being a bit aggressive with the tone mapping when you don't have to be. Here's another great scene. Left-hand side, there's so much detail there. And I'm looking at the monitor on YouTube, and I have to say, wow. I like this camera too, by the way. I'm seeing a lot more dynamic range than I normally get from my camera. The QM8K is impressing me a lot because I don't have to go to the QM9K to be challenged here. So we're at 10,000 nits. Some scenes here are 10,000 nits. Let's see what happens. Let's double check that. And, huh. It feels like it's being limited though. I'm not getting that. I think I'm gonna have to pull out alpha. Okay, let's answer some of your questions. We're gonna go to Netflix next. And we're gonna have to do, everything has to be bright. Okay. Hey, Alberto Rivas. Thank you for the super chat. I have a Sony 77-inch A80J. If I'm looking to upgrade to an 85-inch, which TCL or Hisense model would I notice an improvement? Or is any TV at this point better than what I have? And is it worth waiting for the mini RGB models? So the 77-inch A80J is going to have amazing shadow detail, my friend. And that's the thing, right, is with that shadow detail, you might not get the same level of shadow detail perfection from a non-OLED TV. Sony's shadow detail in the 8080J is actually pretty good. And so here's the thing. If most of the stuff you watch has a lot of dark scenes, your OLED is fine. And if anything, you're upgrading to a larger size to get more impact. You're not necessarily going to get more image quality, especially if you don't watch super bright content. So we're watching super bright content right here. And this is the kind of stuff where you might need a TV with more overhead. Wow, boy, do they look similar. Did Sony or did TCL steal colorist engineers from Sony? Because normally this scene, the TVs all look different than the Bravia 9, and this time they all look the same as the Bravia 9. It feels like I'm watching Bravia 9 clones against a reference monitor, which looks the same as well. Wow, amazing. That's crazy. Okay, so this is what you have to ask yourself, Alberto. If you need a larger size, go up to a 98-inch if you can, but at 85 inches, yeah, miniLED is your best size upgrade. It gives you the most immersion. If it's cinema, I prefer the Hisense U75QG this year. If you do any amount of gaming where you're pushing it a little bit beyond Switch, then you'd go the TCL. I think the TCL game motion is a bit better. There's no ghosting, any of the stuff that people complain about. This is just nuts how all three TVs look like the reference monitor. I mean, look at that. Jeez, it's embarrassing. Embarrassing meaning, how can TCL engineers have caught up in 16 months? And the QM8K firmware update also caught up the QM8K. I'm having a hard time justifying the QM9K, actually. Now that the QM8K is looking this good, like, wait, what's happening here? All right, so here, as we get brighter, you'll see the umbrellas losing some saturation as we get brighter and brighter. Just look at the reference monitor, right? Which one looks most like the reference monitor? And then you'll know. So yeah. They all look very similar to the reference monitor. Good job, everyone. The fact that no one separated themselves is what impresses me dearly. Okay, and we're going to go to Netflix next. Oh, wait, you know what? Let's do some dark scenes real quick. Yeah, I'll do it here. True black. So shadow detail is difficult for miniLED to do right. Sometimes you get blooming. It's not as perfect as OLED when it comes to shadow detail. Now the black levels here look great to me, actually. But it's not that challenging. We know the TVs could do this. I'm going to look for a good, oh, this is a good one. Yep, the QM9K and QM8K is slightly brighter than the Bravia 9, just slightly. But it's not, it doesn't make a huge difference in that scene. Oh, that's this one. Okay, I'm very comfortable with the black levels for all the TVs. Let me see. Oh, here we go. This is a tough one. And they all pretty much look the same. Every time I think I have a tough scene that prior TVs have failed, I'm disappointed that the TVs look the same. Isn't that terrible? Which means you guys win. Okay, in this one, the Bravia 9 is a touch dimmer than the other two TVs. That bright window, it's just a bit too bright for the Bravia 9 to handle. Okay. And, oh, let me finish answering your question, Alberto. Is it worth waiting for RGB mini-LED models? No, absolutely not, mostly because it's in its first generation. These TVs you see here, QM8K, QM9K, and the Bravia 9, they are peak mini-LED. They've matured. They spent 3 years incubating and getting firmware updates and being fixed. They are the best you're going to get for that technology. RGB LED, on the other hand, or RGB mini-LED or micro RGB, literally first generation. Give it some time to incubate and mature. If you're going to get a TV that you want to really hold on to, and you're not there just to, hey, look guys, I got this latest TV, I say stick with one of these TVs. Bravia 9, Sony, or the QM8K, or the QM9K if you want the extra burst. But the reality is, RGB LED, mini LED, in my opinion, is cutting edge, yet I don't know. How's it going to game? How's the motion, right? It doesn't have quantum dots. That means it's going to be missing something. And I want to see what it's missing before I make that recommendation to you. Hey, get the mini RGB LED, mini LED, whatever. I say get, when the new TVs come out in the spring, all this RGB mini LED stuff, get these TVs at a discount at a 100-inch or 98-inch size. My suggestion is the Hisense U75QG at 100-inch or 85, or the TCL QM7K if you want some gaming. It's not as bright as the U75QG. And if you want one that is as bright or brighter, then you have the QM9K that also comes in a 98-inch, or the Bravia 9. It's set it and forget it. It looks great. So yeah. So let's see how they do with skin tones here. Oh, I like this one. Oh, too dark. Let's lighten it up. Okay, I think that'll do it. Okay, now as you can see, the reference monitor is a bit darker because it's literally at reference 100 nits. Or rather, the other three TVs might be brighter. I don't know if this is, yeah, I think the QM8K is over brightening. It's HDR, so the reference monitor is right. This is not SDR, this is HDR. The QM8K is a little bit brighter than it should be. Is it because I put it on that extra brightness? Let's take down that brightness to what its default was originally, which was, didn't make a difference. Yeah, it's just a little bit over brightening there. It's not following the EOTF. QM9K definitely matches the Bravia 9 in brightness and the reference monitor. So, image looks identical in terms of color and everything, but yeah, it does feel like the QM8K out of the box is over brightening just a little. Whereas the QM9K matches the brightness very well of the reference monitor as well as the Bravia 9, which we expect from the Bravia 9. So that's a good one. Here's another good one if you want pale faces to see how much of a green or red saturation is in the face. This is a great scene I use. Right, perfect, right here. All right, so this one I have to turn up a little bit more here. And, all right, maybe. Okay, so this is interesting. Now, it feels like the QM9K is a touch oversaturated when you compare it to the reference monitor, whereas the QM8K and the Bravia 9 are very similar and a similar match to the reference monitor. So these are the subtle differences They all look good, by the way, right? It looks like just brightness maybe is slightly different. And this is HDR10, not Dolby Vision. Who knows what would happen in Dolby Vision, honestly. Every TV does their own Dolby Vision differently. I would have to do a native app Dolby Vision comparison, which I don't plan to do because it's too similar to really matter. But I think that's a pretty good comparison for pale, color saturation on the skin tones, whatnot. But let's see what you guys have to say about this. Okay. Oh, hey, yeah, thank you, Alberto, for following up. No gaming, mostly cloud escape, heavy in horror movies and action, Netflix, UFC. It's a bright room. Sometimes I can't see the OLED well. Okay, then I definitely think you would love the largest Hisense U7 V because I feel the skin tones in the U7 V QG is better than the QM7K. 85-inch, it doesn't matter. Get the 100-inch if you can because you'll be saving quite a bit with the U7 V QG. And the U7 V QG is as bright as the U8 and definitely, some would argue, as bright as the QM8K. So you're going to have no shortage of brightness. And at the 100-inch, you get the off-angle ADS Pro that's unique to Hisense. So in a large gaming room, a little off-angle, your color saturation will still be there. So for you, since you don't do any gaming, I recommend looking at the Hisense U7 V QG, 100 inches. If not, 85 inches fine. Now, 85 inches is a VA panel, so you're not getting the ADS Pro. But still, good choices are available to you. Now, at the 85-inch, Bravia 9, all the way, but it's a bit more expensive than the other two TVs. Thank you for that super chat. See what else you got. And G-Man has the 85-inch C7K, which is very similar to our TCL QM7K. In a dark room, watching this is great, and he replaced OLED. So that's why I brought up this comment. The immersion really ends up being more impactful than the technology because miniLED is so good now, more often than not. I mean, look, you have a reference monitor here. They all look amazing compared to the reference monitor. And which takes me to, let me do some free, I want to see how the low bitrate stuff is. So we've got some free TV going here. And where is the free TV? Here we go, free play. Why do I choose this? Because the signal's sucky, essentially, right? And I'm going to have to turn on the reference monitor because it'll be way brighter than I think the reference monitor is going to be. And it's going to look kind of messed up. Oh, we'll see. Man of Tai Chi. All right, old kung fu movie. Let's see how this looks. I can't pause, guys. And you know what? Looks good. I don't want to play it too long. Get in trouble for that. Let's see. How about something a bit brighter? Chicago Fire? Is that brighter? We'll try CSI Miami next. Chicago Fire. Let's see. And wait. Oh, look at that. Well, it's HDR. I think my Chromecast converted everything to HDR, so it's an HDR feed, which I'm sure you'll have on your Chromecast device as well. Oh, interesting. Oh, I can't pause. So if you saw, the QM7K appears to have less color saturation than the Bravia 9 and the QM9K. So definitely the QM9K and the Bravia 9 are more similar in their color accuracy. I'll have a more thorough Kaleidoscape LED review later in the week because it takes time for me to get the Kaleidoscape up and running, pausing on all the right scenes. So we'll have a more thorough review later, but I'm definitely impressed by the color accuracy of the QM9K against the Bravia 9 right now. TCL definitely did their homework. Oh my God, look at this. Very similar. Now I'll say that it feels like QM9K might be a touch oversaturated here, just a touch. But it's close enough that, yeah, definitely oversaturated. Okay, I think, there we go. I think I was a little overexposed there for you guys. Let's move on before I get in trouble. Oops. Let's go to see reality shows. All right, how does Hell's Kitchen look? Commercial break. Okay, never mind. Let's see. Dr. Phil? Nah. Here we go. Untold Story of the ER. No, that's a commercial. How about what's in the barn? Okay. Looks good to me. I would not be able to distinguish what TV is what when watching what's in the barn. Yeah, it feels like QM7K is a little undersaturated there, didn't it? Okay. Family Feud, anybody? Oh, no, looks good. Let's move on here. Oh, horror sci-fi. I think someone watched a lot of horror. All right. Tales. Z Nation sounds like zombie apocalypse. Okay. People all look the same there. Okay, I think, oh, let's look at an old TV show, Johnny Carson Show. This is really old. This is 480p, right? And yeah, it feels like the QM9K is definitely a touch oversaturated here. It could stand for a professional calibration. Bravia 9 looks the most like the reference monitor. QM7K right behind it. Touch undersaturated, but very close, all of them. Let me lower the exposure a bit more. Okay. Anybody watching Family Affair? I'm just going through different skin tones. Oh, because I think skin tones are what you guys are most sensitive to. I know you're looking for Columbo, but instead you get The Odd Couple. Real skin tones of old people. Oh, commercial. Sorry, guys. I know you're looking for 60-year-old men. Okay, I think we're good. And let's see what questions you guys might have. Oh, hey, Robert Zone, Val Electronics. Hey, thank you for dropping by, Robert. And Robert does carry these extra large TVs from TCL and Hisense. So if you need it calibrated, QM9K, you might want to reach out to Robert. You know what? YouTubing all day. Start doing these comparisons after TCL TVs have been calibrated. And here's why I don't do it. I've had the TCLs calibrated for 3 years straight, and after the third year, every calibrator has told me they swore they will never come to calibrate another TCL again because it's been a nightmare calibrating TCLs. Now, maybe things have changed, but professional calibrators have complained endlessly that the calibration features on TCL TVs simply do not hold. They do not have a consistency. They don't like it. Now, that was 2, 3, and 4 years ago. So ever since last year, I stopped because calibrators refused to come. They don't care how much money I paid them. They were there all day and they still couldn't get it right. So the answer is I'm gun shy about calibrating TVs and especially TCLs. More importantly, 99% of the population who buy any of these TVs, I don't care who it is, don't calibrate. So when I calibrate, I say, oh, look how amazing this TV is after calibration. You're like, wait, why does the lips look blue when it should be pink? I'm like, well, I got to calibrate it. And you'll be like, wait, I'm not going to get it calibrated. And so that's why we're here today. Now, what is calibrated is my Sony BVM 3110. So you can see how far off it is. And it's not that far off. The QM9K is a touch oversaturated. QM8K is a touch undersaturated. And the Bravia 9, I think in this case, comes quite close. So, and I think the Bravia 9 may have fixed some of that magenta tint issue because I did update the furthest that at all. So yeah. let me see what I have on. Oh yeah, shadow detail, Netflix, extraction. That's what I was going to do. So that's coming up next. Here we go. This is one where TVs had a hard time. There we go. I'll pause right here. All right. And not bad. Let me turn up the exposure. All right, how does that look? Okay, so does it feel like the QM9K might be crushing the shadow detail? So definitely, it may be falling off on the other end of the EOTF curve. So it may be over darkening. So QM9K needs another firmware update. Everything looks good, but definitely that explains why in some of the scenes there's a bit more saturation. I think it's over darkening. It may not be following the EOTF curve as well as the Bravia 9, and ironically, the QM7K is a touch brighter than necessary sometimes, but in this case, the QM9K is definitely up. But let's see, did I have it on boost, brightness boost? Maybe that screws things up. Let's take brightness booster off. Okay. So we're on high, which is what I normally have it anyway. Nah, that doesn't change anything. So QM9K, right? Fresh firmware, still needs some help. I think it is definitely over darkening. So TCL, if you're listening, take a look at this scene. The shadow detail, a bit too dark. This is a great scene, by the way. This is why Brian and I use extraction. Yeah. Look. This is a great one because both the walls, right? So using the BVM3110 as a representative of exactly how much shadow detail there should be, Bravia 9 nails it, and both the QM8K and the QM9K, actually the QM9K on the right side of the wall feels like it's a touch brighter than QM8K. But this is what we're talking about, right? This is where most content lives. And so, I'm already feeling my conclusion coming, if you guys don't know already. If the QM9K, and I'm going to throw in the QM8K as well, if they can address this part of it, everything below 3 nits, what is that? Oh, that's, yeah, 2 nits, right? Everything below 2 nits, 0.3 nits, everything below 0.3 nits, TCL, you're done. Above 1,000 nits, stop right there. Stop doing anything. You're done there. Everything below half a nit, you fix that, and it's complete. And this is the easy part. If you see the Bravia 9, so this is where I have to commend Sony. This is a 16-month-old TV where it can take accuracy out of the box, and you saw me reset it, right? Reference monitor level shadow detail, and this is out of Netflix Stream. Now, we haven't tested it with 1917 and Game of Thrones, Season 8, Episode 3, The Long Night. That is very challenging. We're going to do that on my dedicated review. But what I'm seeing here, the Bravia 9 is still impressive. QM9K, oh man, the hardware is there, but do you even need the QM9K? If the QM8K is, that firmware update made it like a poor man's QM9K? I don't know. What are you guys thinking here? I'm really loving these comparisons, by the way. But the Bravia 9, oh, I expected to totally replace my Bravia 9 with the QM9K when I went through all the bright scenes. But until TCL fixes the QM9K, those issues, which is a little bit oversaturation because maybe it's too dark, and the shadow detail right here, which is slightly crushed, fix that, and I would have replaced my Bravia 9 with the QM9K. Or in this case, QM8K is close. Actually, the QM8K is even closer than the QM9K. But get in there. Now, I love that the red oversaturation I've seen in the past has been addressed. It doesn't feel like it's a thing, although the QM7K does feel a bit more red oversaturated than the Bravia 9. So the QM7K still has a little bit of that, not the QM9K. I think the QM9K actually addressed that oversaturation. Let me take the brightness up a bit more for you guys. One more. Okay, here we go. And yeah. Yeah, QM8K is a touch oversaturated in the red. And look at that Bravia 9. It is so good. It's such a good match with the BVM3110. All right, I got to keep the Bravia 9 for another year. TCL so close. Oh. Oh. Hey, Jason, have I been saying QM7K the whole time? QM8K, QM8K. I'm sorry. It's like, oh, all these models. Maybe they should give it different names, like Cadillac, right? You got the Eldorado, you got the Seville, you got the Citron. Okay, super chats. Let's see what we got here. Dennis Perez, thank you for that. Michelangelo Biopic, Sin 2019 on Amazon. Oh, okay. I'll take the time to look at that. Dennis, let me know. What is it I'm looking for? Is it shadow detail? Is it skin tones? Is it brightness? What is great about the Michelangelo Biopic Sin on Amazon? Definitely, I will take a look at that. So, this is a good comment. I want to talk about this. TCL needs to stop trying to be like Sony. It will never be a Sony or a Sony level. So Wine Dollar, why would you stop being, if there's a benchmark, I don't care what the benchmark is, cars, refrigerators, TVs. If there is a model or a brand that was the greatest ever made, why would you not want to beat it? Like, that's the benchmark. I mean, isn't that how cars are made, right? You got the Ferrari, and suddenly you have Tesla vehicles matching it in 0 to 60. Sure, the handling isn't there, but then you could tune it up. The whole point is you need a benchmark so that everyone else can say, all right, that's our benchmark, guys. Let's do it. That's how you improve your product. So I definitely disagree with you. TCL, well, let's forget TCL, Samsung. How much have we complained about Samsung being oversaturated, overbrightened, and then suddenly QM9K, first time, filmmaker mode actually was accurate. And today, guess what? Out of the box, the Samsung S95F and S90F more accurate than the Sony Bravia 8 Mark II out of the box, before and after calibration. What does that tell you, right? HDR, we're not talking SDR, I know SDR has its own thing, but the S90F, S95F, Samsung, after years of trying to beat Sony, they successfully did it. The S95F and S90F is literally more accurate before and after calibration for HDR content than the Sony Bravia 8 Mark II. That is so impressive. It's because Samsung kept at it, and now they did it. And I want all the TV makers to take that lead, that Samsung's like, hey, you know what, we're done. And by the way, Samsung is done. Their Halo product, micro RGB, will always be Halo. But I think as far as their flagship 4K mid-tier Neo QLED, I think they're going to stop doing anything in terms of what QM8K and QM9K is doing. They're going to say, look, looks good. We're going to focus on AI, feature sets, all of that. We don't need to work on anything else. It doesn't need to get brighter. I agree with them. Tone mapping is perfect. I agree with them. I mean, maybe they could work on low bit rate upscaling, right? The low bit rate processing of signal content, maybe make Tizen snappier. But for all intents and purposes, I think Samsung's image quality is pretty much there. They're solid. 8K and 9K, we're seeing it right here, need a little work, just a little, but yeah, we gotta improve, and Sony sets the benchmark. People gotta chase it down. That's how you do it. Okay, so what you guys got here? All right, try local dimming on high for some of these dark scenes. You know what? Let's try that. All right, so I'm going to rewind. The reason I'm rewinding is I'm just going to let it reset, right? Because it sat there a little bit long. Don't know if the whole eco mode is kicking in or not. I know I turned it off, but you never know. Okay, let's put Sony on what you suggested. Let's take tone mapping to high. Excuse the overexposed settings, but this is what's going to happen. All right. Here we are. Auto local dimming is on medium. Actually, no, let's do it this way. There we go. High. Doesn't change much. High, but you're right. High cleans up that little spot there. Just a little bit. It's very subtle, and I'm overexposing the scene. But effectively, it doesn't do much. I'll put it back to medium. But good try. But it's close, right? And ignore the color differences, please. Only the reference monitor is calibrated. The other three TVs are not. Once they're calibrated, they'll look very similar in terms of color. But yeah, the Bravia 9 looks closest to the reference monitor, and I'll show you. I'll lower the exposure just a touch so you can see how much closer that is. There, right there. At that exposure, you can see that the Bravia 9 most closely matches that shadow on the BVM. Arguably, it could stand to be a touch brighter. Arguably. Okay. YouTube TV. All right, I have YouTube TV. Let's see what we're going to do. That wasn't YouTube TV, though. That was Google Free TV. This is Google TV. So this was the Google. So the thing with Google Free TV is I can't pause. I can pause on YouTube TV. So we'll do that. YouTube TV. Let's see. I'm trying to think. Live. Okay, let's see what we got. Let's Make a Deal. Kelly Clarkson. I don't know if the Drew Barrymore show is on. I'm on Pacific time. You know, I'll just use another Big Bang Theory. Oh, definitely overexposed here. Let's take it back down. Better. Okay. Okay, let's go up to another talk show that's close enough to the Drew Barrymore show. Jennifer Hudson. Okay. And I can pause. That looked pretty good. Let's see. Okay, let me look for Access Daily. Oh, look. Wait, Mario and Kit. All right, let me see. Skin tone. Yeah, it does feel like QM9K is a bit oversaturated. Okay. I mean, everything else looks very similar, but it is overexposed here. Okay, that'll do it. Oh, much better. Okay. Okay, I think I got exposure down. Okay, so what is, this is HD, I think. Yep, 1080p 60. I wonder if that satisfied you guys. Let me see if there's another show coming up. Let's see, news, see how that looks. Yeah, I'm not going to risk ESPN. Okay, little a fight at Benihana in Torrance, if you guys are Southern California. They all look great. Yep, nothing to see here. Let's see. Okay, I'll take any more requests before we wrap it up. And we'll wrap up with some initial conclusions for the QM9K, as well as the QM8K and the Bravia 9. Here's a good question, or comment. G-Man says, and I'm going to put it on YouTube so I don't get knocked. Okay, I think that'll do it. Yeah, I'll let you guys watch this for a bit. Okay. G-Man says, the only thing I'd worry about with a 98-inch is low, but content that close. I was watching content close, so 98-inch sitting too close. 4K or good 1080p would be fine. So I assume you're afraid that if you're sitting too close to a 98-inch, things will look soft, right? Which is a complaint. Personally, I don't see the problem at all. I have the 98-inch Q90F in the other room, still testing. I sat 8 feet away from it, 7 feet. It looks great to me. Now, obviously, if you're watching 720p, doesn't look good. Not because it's 4K, it's because 720p doesn't look good when you upscale it to 4K. There's just not enough information. But if you watch 4K native on a 4K TV, that's 98 inches, it's so good. The clarity, I don't see the pixels. I think if I sat 5 feet away, maybe, but 7, 8 feet from a 90-inch TV, it's fine. Don't worry about it. But some people are sensitive, so, but I think most people would be fine, honestly. Right, let's see what else you guys got here. Okay, Golf Addict asks, FOMO, not a gamer. That really takes a lot of pain in your decision making off the table. Want one for sports and movies, 85-inch, sitting 6 to 8 feet away, no windows. What size and make would be perfect? Also, watching 4K Blu-rays or the 98-inch QM7K. 98-inch QM7K or 100-inch U75QG. Either of these TVs at 85-inch, personally, I would take the U75QG at either 85 or 100-inch. Now, at 8 feet away, I'd take the 100-inch U75QG, the Hisense. I just find out of the box the colors are more accurate. I just like the audio is, I'd have to say the U75QG and the U8 this year, they have the best in class audio, easily matching the Sony Bravia 9 and beating anyone else, and arguably possibly even beating the Bravia 9. You're getting your money's worth in terms of audio, all in one package. Now, if you're already getting a sound bar or you have a sound system, then obviously it's not a big deal. But if you're listening to audio out of your TV, that kind of pushes it for Hisense for me. So the U75QG is just so close to being my editor's choice. But the QM6K is like $200 cheaper. That I'm like, oh, but it's such a good TV for so much less. I'm still like, I can't decide. The U75QG really is all the TV anyone would need, for sure. And so for you, because you watch sports and U75QG, sports, bright room, nails it, you're going to love it. You're going to love it, for sure. All right. Jason, we don't even know what the price is yet. My wife is going to be the only one watching my Sony RGB LED because she's going to bury me in the backyard after I buy it. So here are some speculations. Definitely, it looks like it's going to come in an 85-inch. Are RGB, so is it going to be the RGB LED Halo, or is it going to be the Sony Bravia 9 Mark II? Halo, if they separate it, then for sure the Halo RGB LED is going to be very expensive. At the 85-inch, I suspect $15,000. If there's going to be two. If that's the Halo at 15, then the Bravia 9 Mark II with RGB LED technology will be a step down, and that one could be more affordable at maybe $10,000. Now you might still get buried for $10,000, but my guess is at the 85-inch size, somewhere between $10,000 and $15,000, depending on what models they plan to release, for sure. So yeah, no, this Sony RGB LED, which is similar to the RGB mini LED you're seeing from Hisense and TCL, this is going to be great. I cannot wait to see it at CES. Okay. So FOMO, would you take the U7 over the U8? Yes, the 2025 U7 is, in my opinion, a better TV than the U8. Same brightness, better color accuracy. I don't know why. It just feels like it's a better made TV in terms of image processing. The U8, color was off, shadow detail was off, barely brighter. I mean, arguably its tone mapping at the brightest scenes might be slightly better, but the U7 5QG, for anything you're watching today on streaming, on Netflix, U7 5QG will look better, especially the shadow detail, and the skin tone accuracy is better than the U8. Yes, highly recommended. And the audio is the same. Excellent audio. Okay. Okay, I think, make sure I got all your super chats, and okay. I might take one more request. If not, we're going to wrap this up with my conclusion. So here's the conclusion. Early. The QM9K is still an early product, right? Literally launching, releasing in the next few weeks. It's launched already. I have the QM9K review. I see its extra brightness and specular highlights and gradation detail. Anything that's bright, it has literally matched the Bravia 9. But so has the QM8K, right? With its recent firmware updates, both the QM8K and the QM9K are matching the Bravia 9, with the QM9K even beating the Bravia 9 in some brighter scenes, as we saw. However, the QM9K is not a finished product. I think it's below half a nit shadow detail you saw in extraction. It over darkens, and that needs to be addressed. And then throughout some of the bright scenes, it feels like it's a little oversaturated, but it's not because it's oversaturated as much as it's not following the EOTF curve. So the colors feel like it's more saturated. I think once they correct that, it will start to look more like the Bravia 9. Oh, wow. Right here, I noticed that contrast is slightly better than the Bravia 9 on the QM9K. So how interesting. Or maybe it's over darkened at this point. But I have to say, I'm getting more impact from that sun on the bottom. So this is a great scene. The sun right here, the contrast of the sun right here and the clouds right here, it just feels that, and maybe that's what TCL is doing. It's kind of gaming its darkness a little bit to make it look like it has better contrast, because that's what you do, right? You kind of over darken the touch. So when you have these scenes, it looks a bit better. Let me increase the exposure or decrease the exposure a bit to see if you guys can see that. Yeah, I think that'll do it. But TCL knows what it's doing. I did not expect them to come so close after 16 months, and I can see they're definitely a firmware update away from making this an amazing TV. Really, really is. Okay, let's continue this. Now, should you get the QM9K? That's the big question. So, I hate to say it, the QM8K with half the dimming zones is right there. So, even side by side, and with the reference monitor, I'm having a hard time distinguishing between the QM9K and the QM8K, with the exception of those bright scenes that where it's slightly brighter. But the processing on the QM8K looks the same, and it's near shadow, near black is better. It's more accurate, right? So, not as accurate as the Bravia 9, but so both of them could stand to fix that shadow detail, a little bit of over darkening below half a nit or so. So Bravia 9, you want perfection out of the box. Its most recent firmware update, I think, addressed some of its color issues I've had with it before. Looks great. And the other two TVs, so close. The QM9K is very expensive. It is literally right now, MSRP at launch, it will be a few $100s more expensive than the Bravia 9. But we know what street pricing will do. It'll probably be a few hundred cheaper than Bravia 9, but is it twice as much better than the QM8K? Definitely not. Is it $500 better? I don't even know if it's $500 better. Now, I know it has the Gemini latest AI, if that's important to you, but that's not worth that much to me as a premium. But I'm looking at this and I'm loving the QM8K. So who wins in this one? For value, the QM8K is still right there. The Bravia 9, it's expensive, but you guys saw, you know what you're paying for, right? You don't want to fiddle with it. You don't want to hire a calibrator. It kind of nails everything out of the box. And sorry, got to kind of, there we go. I had to adjust the exposure just a touch for you guys. But yeah, let me know. Let me know if you're interested in the QM9K. Now, at 98 inches, does it make a difference? Well, it'll have 6,000 dimming zones. It might get a little bit brighter, but as we've said, the brightness is pointless. The brightness wars is over, right? Check out the video. I put it out a couple of weeks ago. Don't worry about brightness anymore. All these TVs, as you can see, has been matching the reference monitor in every bright scene that I have. So yeah, is TCL there? I think it's there. I mean, these are little things that definitely software related. And now a lot of you are saying, is it going to last? Does any TV last? If you look at ratings, most recent longevity test, it was the Sony flagships that failed first. So I don't know if any TVs last anymore. I always say get an extended warranty. Okay, so, and the Bravia was crushing the details. You know what? That's what I didn't do. Starfield test. All right, let's do the Starfield test. Challenge accepted. Where is it? There it is. Starfield. Did I take away my Starfield? Oh, there it is. I see it. Whew. I thought I deleted it. Okay, Starfield test. All right, and I'll turn up the exposure so you guys can see. Okay, so here's the Starfield test. Let's turn up the exposure here. Close my curtains so no stray light gets in. All right, see what we can see here. Oh, I'm still in there. Goodness. That's the thing with high exposure. It's like everything's going to be perfectly blocked, which may not be the case, but we'll do what we can. All right, much better. Okay, so, and okay, you see blooming on the QM8K. You see the Bravia 9 matching the BVM, and you see QM9K crushing a few of those stars. But the blooming is controlled. So what the Bravia 9 is doing is raising some of that black to eliminate the blooming. QM7K and QM9K are too aggressively creating deep blacks, but the blacks aren't that deep. It doesn't have to be because the BVM shows you there's some, it's not completely black. So there you have it. It's actually the QM7K, or maybe, yeah, QM7K. Because it's making the blacks too blacks, it looks like it's blooming. Now this is, I'm hyperexposing it. Let me see if I actually see this in real life. Let me peek in here. Yeah, you really see that blooming on the QM8K. And yes, this is not black. The reference monitor is not completely black. I do see gray. And so the Sony is reflecting that very well. All right, well, if you guys watch Starfield, Bravia 9 once again kills it in Starfield. And reflections on the QM9K, you know, not, maybe this is why you need a matte screen. Otherwise, the reflection is kind of crazy, right? Hopefully this answers your question. Truth X. And he's like laughing at the QM7K. QM8K, QM8K. QM7K is worse. QM8K. I keep on calling it QM7K. You're right. It's like, oh, all right. Does this answer everyone's question? QM8K. I'm going to go in there and ask AI to replace every reference to the QM7K as QM8K. Thank you for that. Okay. But again, how often do you see this? So let's see, let's go into, oh, that's a good one. Let's try this. I want you guys to see the Starfield in motion. So this is where the Bravia 9 is an unsung processing. Look how well it's doing as the stars come into focus and out of focus. The Bravia 9 perfectly renders each star without blinking or ghosting, unlike the QM8K or the QM9K. So not quite Sony. Better? Sure, better than previous years, but wow, Sony did a great job there. And there you have it. Reference monitor, as you can see, there's no blooming, no haloing. QM8K, definitely some haloing. QM9K, slightly better. Bravia 9, most consistent, just not as dark as the BVM3110 between the stars, but this is as good as it gets if you're not going OLED. And this is where people buy OLED, is to get that performance of the BVM3110. Only an OLED can do that. Okay. Yes, Jason. Bravia 9 firmware update definitely addressed a few things. And hey, I'm not going to promise anything, but who knows? QM8K, QM9K may be a couple of firmware updates from getting close, but this is a hard one. I don't know if a firmware update could address the whole Starfield thing. Yeah. Well, okay, so this takes us to a different discussion. If you never watched Starfield, but you know that Sony invested millions of dollars to fix Starfield, do you still buy the Sony? And that's the point, right? That's why we do these comparisons, is you're cutting corners on the processing here and there with the TCL QM8 or QM9 or QM7 or QM6. Well, actually, the QM6 would not have this issue because it doesn't get as bright in the stars. It would look more like the BVM, but the stars wouldn't be as bright. But anyway, so what you're paying for a Sony is sometimes you don't even know. You don't even get to the scene that you've paid for because you don't watch Starfield, right? You're watching The Price is Right, you're watching Netflix, random Mandarin drama, Korean drama. There's never a Starfield in there. But if you're watching Stargate, Quantum Leap, Star Wars, Battlestar Galactica, then suddenly the Sony Bravia 9 comes to play and you see, oh, I know what I paid for. And so at the end of the day, you don't know what you don't know. And people buy a Sony, they pay the extra bucks because they're saying, look, I don't know what I'm going to watch, but I want to make sure that whatever I watch, Sony's got me covered. Whereas with the TCL and the Hisense, they don't know what they don't know. Like, oh, is that what it looks like in a Starfield? Oh, thank you, FOMO, for telling us. So short of that, who knows if they even have a Starfield test to this degree, right? And so that's where that extra money is. So the Sony tax is this. You may or may not use it. It's like buying an overbuilt Mercedes, right? You may or may not go off-road with a G-Wagon, but you know, in case there's a flood, you might need that G-Wagon, waterproof, off-road, blah, blah, blah. So I think with that, we'll leave with SD's conclusion, which I agree. Both TCL, a bit more crushing, more blooming, less detail. Sony, much better precision. Okay. Oh. And I think with that, we'll end this stream. Now, remember, this is a stream. It's a first impression. Who knows what happens with future firmware? Things get better, things get worse. I might be wrong. Maybe I have it in the wrong setting, right? I do what I can do. But I'll get a more thorough review out once I get a chance to really dive into the QM9K, QM8K, Bravia 9 comparisons. We'll use real content. And until next time, my friends, stop the FOMO. And thank you for showing up. Okay. Wait, gotta put this on. Sony Bravia 9. Good job.